Well, as with all inventions, you tend to look at a problem, analyse it, see, because you're always looking obviously for a simple solution, and in analysing the problem we had with filters on conventional pumps, I was able to see that the main issue was there just wasn't enough cross-sectional area. So, for instance, if you look at this, which is the conventional can filter, which is what's primarily used in most screen filter situations, we've got a series of holes, but doesn't really represent a big cross-section area. So the problem with a small cross-sectional area is that it clogs up quite quickly, because what happens is it draws water in at a very high velocity, which obviously entrains all the debris at the same time. So by taking that concept and saying, well, how do I enlarge that cross-sectional area? You know, you come up with, and again, I was looking at some CD discs, and I thought, well, if we've got a series of CD discs together, all of a sudden, you create a big cross-sectional area. So from that, I came up with this. So what happens here is essentially it's a very thin disc, but by these serrations, we managed to increase that area again. So as you can see, once you start loading them together in that sort of form, you can all of a sudden see how the area increases. Now, one of the issues with that is you think, well, how, in that case, how do you separate them? Because there's obviously got to be a degree of separation between the discs. So then I came up with the idea of making an integral spring, which you can see there, so that when they're positioned together, they actually operate as a spring. So by putting a series of them together, you can actually increase that distance between the discs just by simply putting more pressure between the plates. So as you see on a filter here, this has got 16 discs on, but you can actually go up to as many as 40. And obviously, the more discs you put on, the finer the grade of filtration. So that was the solution. Yeah. And when we tried it, and we've been making these now for about 4 years and got hundreds installed. And they've just worked absolutely brilliantly. So it's always great when you can see the end result having the effect that you originally wanted to achieve. So that represents about 200 times more cross-sectional area from that. And again, going back to the whole principle of screen filtration, because the draw is much less, the initial debris doesn't want to be attracted to it in the first place, and that therefore means that it lasts a lot longer before it does start blocking. But the other interesting thing about screen filters as well is what happens when you get that fast draw. As everyone will know, when they take the plug out their hand basin, you'll get a vortex created, and what that does, that entrains air into the inlet pipe. And for a pump, the last thing you want is air entrained in a pump, because that creates all cavitation, all sorts of issues. And what this does is this sort of basically eliminates the formation of the vortex, because of the shape of the disc together. It doesn't allow that initial cusp of the vortex to be started, which prevents that problem. So it does three things really: prevents air getting into your pump, reduces the initial instinct of debris to want to come to it, and thirdly, when it does get drawn in, it lasts a lot longer because it's got such a huge cross-sectional area. So and also it's easy to clean, because you just, by this method here, all the debris will drop out just by shaking it, or putting a hose pipe on it, or in a bucket of water or whatever, and it's very simple to maintain. And the other thing is, by these connections here we've got knockout inserts. So by hitting the centre here with a hammer, we can take the insert of that coupling away, and then by simply screwing more units on, you can increase the filtration in it. So it's a modular system which can be expanded quite easily. Wherever you're drawing, big amounts of water through any conventional pumping system, with this as this inlet screen filter, it will dramatically improve the situation. Now, what's happened previously is pump manufacturers have not really focused on filters, because what they've sort of accepted is that you can allow a certain amount to go through the pumps, And at the end of the day, you know, if it messes the pump up, that people are going to go and buy another pump off you. So it hasn't really, you know, it's a sort of, you know, good filters haven't really been a focus for pump manufacturers. But from an end user point of view, you know, this will undoubtedly increase the life expectancy of your pump. So whether you're a domestic user that's got a small fish pond, or whether you're a massive industrial fish producer, this is a system that will work for you.